Yeah, have it on.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So, welcome to session 4. We're going to be looking at if we just go to the next slide, Maria. Today, we're going to be looking at the financial and flexi sections of the CEF upgrade and be looking at the new features and functionality that you would see as a part of the upgrade to Health Pass 4.8 to 5.x. So just a couple things, if you can just remember to complete the survey at the end of the session for OMS management. And then we really yesterday had a good session, I think, on claims. Very interactive. A lot of people had questions. We love questions. So please, as we go through, we would like for this session to be the same way. We have 3 hours this morning from 8:30 to 11:30. So plenty of time to ask and answer all your questions. If you can use the chat feature, that would be great. And once you submit a question, I'll give it a thumbs up. You'll know that we have it. And then I'll just interject and ask the presenter. You can also raise your hand or just ask your question, whatever's the easiest and most comfortable for you. We thought this morning that we would start with Carlene to sort of level set. There were some questions around the upgrade. What would the upgrade look like? How would it change how I do my job and where I do my job? And so yesterday we kind of did that level set, had a few questions about that, which I think was helpful for the group. And Carlene's going to start with that same slide today to kind of level set what the upgrade means. And then Paula, Amy, and Cindy are going to do the financial discussion and demonstration for you. So, Carlene, let's start with you this morning. And thank you,
Great.
everybody, for your time today.
Thanks, Rochelle. After hearing questions last week from Gainwell and state staff, we thought it was really important to level set about View 360, as Rochelle said. View is really going to present one of the most significant changes that this main upgrade will bring to the users. Really is a fundamental change in how and where you work in the system. For most of you, it will be View 360. I want to also, these words have been drilled into my head this week after hearing 4 or 3 previous sessions. If you have doubts, I just need you to know there is no loss of functionality. The core solution, as you know it, still exists. And I'll walk you through this slide to kind of demonstrate that. And I'm going to start at the bottom of the slide. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you can barely see the names, but they're all the same databases that many of you know and use today. I know Chuck is pretty familiar with Plan Data Parallel, Health Pass Common. All of those databases are still going to exist. The same thing with the middle of the box. All of the applications that you know today, Flexi Financials, Health Pass Administrator, all of those are still exist. The boxes at the top, and I'm going to say View 360 for last, the IVR system is still going to be the same. So will the online portals, provider portal, trading partner. We don't do much in Maine with member. The SharePoint portal those all are fundamentally the same as what you have today with some upgrades, right? That's part of the process. The new feature that I'm pretty excited about is View 360, which really is, in simple terms, it's just a new presentation application that overlays all of the individual systems that you use today. One example is instead of having to go to administrator for viewing claims and then opening Flexi to see the financial component of it, you can actually go into View 360 and you can open the claim and you can actually drill down and see the financial information right within that user interface. The idea is that View 360 brings data together for you in one place. There's also some functionality built into View, and I think I've got this right. certainly Cindy will correct me if I don't, but I think View allows you to post receivables and payments, and even has a new functionality that includes budgeting functions if you choose to use it. So I think I got that right, Cindy, right? Hopefully.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Another important aspect is this new View 360 overlay is 508 compliant, and the flows that you're going to see in View 360 were put together by users, and it really builds on Gainwell's many years of Medicaid experience. It's MITA aligned to the business processes. So instead of having to go into health paths and try and figure out eligibility and then what benefits they might have and going into the benefits module, um, View 360 really brings that together. I know after seeing this will be my fourth presentation of it. I see that my job will be made easier. Certainly. The product team, the product roadmap for Gainwell really is to integrate more functionality into this presentation view if they're not already there. So there may be things as we go through the presentation where they'll, Amy, Cindy, or Paula will tell you this is in View, this is in View 360, this is not. But the idea is that things will build in View 360. That is the tool that will make your job easier. So I just want to say that I'm pretty confident that once you start working in View 360, you'll see a fundamental difference in how you work from where you are today. It's really performing your work in a kind of a one-stop shop. I'm going to pause right here and just see if there are questions about it. I certainly am happy to take that. Okay, we'll see the product in just a few minutes. I'm going to turn it over to Paula and Amy to get started. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Carlene, and welcome to all of you.
I do have one question.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. I guess this is Natalie. So I just had a quick question, Carlene. We said View 360 was going to be, the biggest, kind of change here that we're going to see. And actually, it might be on the next slide now that I kind of got a sneak peek at it real quick. We are, a part of this is an upgrade to some of the actual applications as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So we
And
may see some added functionality maybe in the applications as part of an upgrade.
Amy's going to show you some new fun stuff in Flexi.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're going to like it. Like it better than what you have today, for certain. I don't even have to say, I think. I know it's going to be better than what you have today.
100%. I would agree. So thank you so much for joining us for this financial segment of the CEF, Claims Encounters of Financial System. And just a quick brief overview of some of the major changes that you'll see from our current Flexi 5.01 version to the Flexi Financial 6.3. One of the major changes within Flexi is a single module design. They also redesigned the toolbar, search feature. There's hyperlinks for quick access, and there's a few updates as well in both accounts receivables and accounts payables. And on top of that, as Carlene just alluded to, great new features in View 360, which provides you obviously a single end user access point, the integration with the Flexi data, which includes integration with member, provider, claims processing, and financial manager. It gives you the ability to search and filter. There's a really neat budgeting capability. And it also allows you to add some payment and receivable entries right directly from View 360. Next slide, please. So again, key features, an enhanced user interface and functionality in Flexi. There's also a fund allocation business rule engine. We have, again, the View 360 we just talked about, which also provides fund allocation visibility, quick access to financials, that really neat budget functionality we talked about. It's pretty exciting stuff. Next slide, please. So again, one of the things that you'll notice is the simplification of reversal claims processing. Moving forward, upon implementation, accounts receivables will be restricted to only true receivables. And we'll talk more about that. Again, hyperlinks. There's also an auto cash application default when you're keying cash receipts that should help you with time, the time it takes to apply. You can do it on a default basis. The rules engine I talked about earlier, certainly we still have the same rules, if you will, but it's a configurable UI. It's no longer just gap tables and spreadsheets. View 360, again, it's going to give you direct access to claims invoice data in just 1 or 2 clicks. No more going from this application to the other. Again, and another neat feature is it also gives you direct access to various tasks, letters, and or calls. Next slide, please. So some of the questions that came up prior to this session, thank you to Darren Myers for submitting these, we'll talk about throughout this demonstration. So we'll recap at the end and make sure that you feel satisfied that we've answered these questions throughout the demonstration. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Amy Noonan, who some of you may recall was with us in Maine for a few years as a trainer. And she's going to take us through the Flexi Financial application demonstration.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks, Paula. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a walkthrough of Finance Manager or Flexi, as you guys call it. And I'm really going to focus on showing you the new functionality since I know a lot of you are already in Finance Manager all the time. So the big change that Paula mentioned is now our receivables and payables and control and ledger data is all in one place. So you're not going to have to go, in between modules. You can see your accounts payable and your accounts receivable data in the same place. It's fantastic. So like I said, I'm going to mostly cover new functionality. As I talk through examples, I'm going to try to open some windows that aren't necessarily new, but just so you can kind of see that for the most part, a lot of it has the same look and feel. The fields are going to be the same, but there's some places where there's some new functionality, new ability to kind of drill down, new search features, stuff like that, some updates to some of the inquiry screens. So we'll kind of walk through that, but please feel free at any time to stop and ask questions, or if there's something that you want to see that I haven't shown you, just let me know. And Paula and I are happy to answer questions as we go. Paula and I are going to do a little tag team today. I'm going to talk through the UI changes, and a few times I'm going to throw to Paula, and Paula's going to talk about um, some of the other changes in the system. Great. Okay. So the big thing, like I said, everything is now within one module. So that means that our toolbar is changed and our navigation is changed. So I'm just going to start by walking you through the new module design. So the first thing you'll notice here is we've got this nice ribbon-based toolbar at the top. Um, and it's organized by, so it's tab-based toolbar, and it's organized by action. And then on each tab, it's organized by functionality. Um, and it's basically it's organized based off of the old module. So we have like a general ledger, payables, receivables. So that's how we're grouping the icons together on each of these tabs. And of course, what you have access to is based off of security rights and roles, depending on how you want to set those up. But let's start at the top and we'll kind of walk through and get you familiar with the navigation in the new system. I think that's probably what will take um, the most time to learn in the new system. But like I said, a lot of the functionality is going to feel very familiar. It will be an easy transition. So at the top, we have our quick access toolbar that has our common command buttons. So we have new for when you need to refresh your screen. We have our binocular or select icon. Save, which is the probably one of the most important icons because a lot of our screens don't have a save button. You can add sticky notes, and this is of course configurable. We have our little drop down arrow, and you can click more commands, and so you could um, add different icons, you can remove icons. It's a pretty straightforward process. You can change the location of the ribbon. If you'd like to show up the quick access toolbar below the ribbon, you can do that. I like it up above, so I'll move it back. We also have the ability to, um, I like the I like the ribbon-based toolbar to show, mostly because I'm usually demoing it. But if you prefer more screen space, you can have it auto hide by right-clicking and clicking minimize ribbon. And then when you click on a tab, it pops back up. But if you're working, it auto hides. And sometimes when you log in for the first time, the toolbar will be on auto hide. So that's why I always like to point out that you can max you just click unclick minimize the ribbon and it pops right up for you. I'm just going to walk through the tabs, kind of talk about the different functionality, just so you can get a sense of where to find things. And then after that, I'll dig in a little bit deeper on some of the accounts receivable and accounts payable, and I'll try to give you some examples of how you can kind of drill through accounts payable into accounts receivable. Um, so let's start here on our home tab. So first we have our clipboard. So your standard cut, copy, paste. Our actions. So this is the same as what's in our quick access toolbar at the top. And then our view. So this has a couple of new pieces of functionality I really enjoy. The first is this display search pane. So I'm going to click that. And it always pops up on the left-hand side, but this is movable. So if you like it on the right-hand side, you can do that. But this is going to be a great feature as you learn how to navigate the new system, because it really it gives you breadcrumbs in order to be able to find things. So it's broken up by tab here. So here we have our data entry tab, and it's broken up by group or functionality. And if you click like receivables, you can see the functionality or the icons that are available. And you can also type in and search. So I'll type in withholding certificate let's say, for example, and it shows me two places. So on reports, it's showing me a withholding certificate report I could run, and then on the configuration rules tab in the payables group. And then you can just click withholding certificate and it opens the screen for you. So not only does it help you find things easier, but it also helps you learn how to navigate the system. Another option we have here is our favorites pane. This is really nice. Like if you come in and if you're a Flexi user and you kind of perform similar tasks every day, like um, if there's a certain report you run all the time, or you are entering cash receipts, or you're doing an inquiry, you can save your most used icons in your favorites pane. And it's a very easy process. I have withholding certificates open here. And you can see on my tab, there's a little thumbnail. So if I click my thumbnail, my icon's now saved to favorites. And if you decide, oh, whoops, this is the wrong one, or I don't use this, if it's getting a little cluttered, you can just click your thumbtack again and it disappears. Another new piece of functionality that I really like that you can probably see on the screen is that we have hyperlinks built in to a lot of the screens now. So anything that's blue and underlined, if I'm trying to pick the right vendor, I mean, of course we can search, but I can click vendor code and it brings up my vendor selection window. And it also brings up, I'm just going to close this out of the way. Oops. So if I just choose, let's say, demo hospital, it then brings up my master vendor screen so I can look up some more information on that. And I'll show you different examples of where we can use that as we go, but I really like the hyperlinks. Okay, so let's close this. I'm going to get this out of my way. And let's keep walking through the tabs. So next we have our data entry tab. So a lot of what's on this tab is what used to, it's probably on the home tab of the version of Flexi that you currently use. So again, it's kind of organized by your current modules. So first we have our general ledger. So, for your data entry, you can manually enter a journal entry on in your payables group. This is where we would come in to enter an accounts payable invoice or do an invoice adjustment. You could, this is where we kick off the payment cycle. For our advanced selection for payment, our ASP screen is here. We can void a payment. And then within our receivables group, this is where you can enter an accounts receivable invoice or adjust or modify it. We could enter a cash receipt, your manual cash application screen. Um, and then refunds for receipt refund and invoice refund. And I will come back and demo this for you. And then, as you know, a lot of things in Finance Manager are a two-step process. First, you're going to enter it, and then you have the option to review and process it. So after we do our data entry, we go to the Review Process tab. And so here's for our general ledger where we can process a manual journal entry. For the payable side, we can review and process an accounts payable invoice. For receivables, the AR invoice or the cash receipts or your refunds. This is also where you can run finance charges. Next is your reports tab. So this should look very familiar. Not a lot of changes here, but again, it's grouped together by your general ledger reports. If you want to run like a journal listing, your payables reports. So you can run a report on accounts payable invoices. You can look to make sure see if there's anything unposted in the system. Your distribution report. For receivables, you've got your aging report. You can do a listing of AR invoices or anything unposted in the system, your customer list, and then we have control for security assignments. Next, we have our inquiries tab. So this is where we can search for information. So we have, general ledger. You can search for information on accounts and journals. For payables, we can look at our vendors, accounts payable invoices or payments. For our receivables, um, customers, invoices, receipts, and let's see, and then the configuration rules tab. So there's a lot here, but this is where we can kind of come in and do some basic configuration in the system. So first we have our general ledger group. So this is where we can view or set up the chart of accounts. Um, then we have our payables group. So this is where we can come to add a new vendor or view the vendor record. We can configure distribution rules, and I'm going to demo that a little bit later. You can create new invoice types. We can enter withholding certificates. On the receivable side, this is where you can enter or view a customer record. Um, and you're probably at this point going, those icons are really small. So there's two things that help with that. One is we have tooltips now. So if you hover over an icon, it tells you what it is. And we also have this little pop out now. So if we click the pop out, now we can see all of our icons. So so here on the for our configuration options on the receivable side, we can see that we can set up account codes. We can configure finance charges. You can set up your terms rules for how customers can do their repayments. Set up adjustment codes. And then your definition codes, which are your cash reason codes and your AR reason codes. And I will come back to demo this as well. For our common group, this is where we can set up our bank. And then for control, this is where we can set up security groups and assign tasks to different security groups. And I'm going to come back and to demo that as well. And then our last tab is our utilities tab. So this is where we can use this for importing data. So importing invoices or cash receipts or payables, and the general ledger. Does anybody have any questions before I start on navigation or the screens that I've showed before I start diving into some demos? All right. So I'm going to start by talking about um, security rights and roles because that influences a lot of things in the demo as we go forward. And so we can set up security rights and roles to kind of create that separation of duties. So there's a lot of options in here depending on how you want to set it up. And that's something that we can talk about during implementation, kind of what your needs are. But I'm just going to kind of quickly show you what some of the functionality looks like in the system. So to navigate to this, I'm going to go to my configuration rules tab in my control group, and I'm going to go to security. I'm going to click my little drop down. I'm going to click groups. So I'm going to show you what I have set up. This is a training environment. I don't remember if I said that in the beginning. So nothing in here is main specific. So I apologize for that. But I'll show you what I have configured in my training environment. So I'm going to we could easily create a new security group, but I'm just going to show you what we have set up. So I'm going to click my select or my binocular icon. And this is what we have configured for security groups. So here you can see we have one for a configuration analyst, a financial analyst, financial manager, for the QA staff, for a testing staff. And we can set this up so you could break it down differently than this. Like you could have roles that only have access to AR information versus roles that only have access to accounts payable information. Um, Depending on how your team is set up, you could set it up for like a data entry clerk versus a supervisor. So there's lots of options that we can work with you on. I am going to, let's look at a financial analyst. So I'm going to say, okay. And now that I've done that, my users and my task buttons are now available to me. So I'm going to click users. And so here you can see which of the users in this environment have been added to this financial analyst group. So on the left, you can see the available users. On the right, you can see who's currently assigned to this. And it's very easy to, add or remove people. And of course, this is also based off of having the correct security rights to order to be able to access this. Um, and then the tasks. So I'm going to start by making the screen bigger when it opens. This one opens tiny for some reason. Uh, Here we go. So here, again, on the left are the available tasks, and on the right are the selected tasks. So we can break this down if you want to set it up so only like a financial clerk um, has access to do the data entry, but only the supervisors have access to post. We can totally do that. But for this particular role, just to kind of give you an example of how granular we can get, um, they have for accounts payable, you can see the different types of inquiries. So account, invoice summary, payment inquiry, like depending on how you want to break it down. For vendor inquiries, for the ability to process, to do your batch creation, your invoice entry, to process payments, to run various reports for accounts payable, to come in here and do update configuration rules. You could definitely limit updating configuration rules to your finance manager or whatever works for your team. And then if we keep going, next it's broken down by accounts receivable. So ability to do different inquiries, to run finance charges, to again run reports and do data entry. And if we keep scrolling down, it's who has the rights to set up security. And then it's broken down by general ledger for doing inquiries and being able to make changes in the system. So we can get fairly granular, kind of based off of what your needs are. But this will kind of allow you to set up the internal controls that work for you. I'll close this down. Is there any questions on security rights and roles?
Yeah, hi, Chuck here. I have a question. Who's doing this today?
Who's doing the setup?
Yeah,
Yeah, Gainwell does,
okay,
based on what we're directed to do by um, y'all, Natalie's group or you or whomever.
okay. So is this going to be coming towards the state doing this?
That's not our intention at this time.
Okay,
We would definitely work with you
yeah.
to
Oh,
configure that.
okay, all right, thank you.
Great, thanks for your
Natalie,
question.
Natalie, you have a question?
I do, yes. In the upgrades here, to the system, I'm curious, and Paula is aware of these questions that we've had before. Is there is there an option in security, to limit, whether a person can data enter and post? So having it kind of say, you have the ability to do each, but you don't have the ability to do them both on a single invoice or
No,
batch. Okay,
no,
thank you.
it's remains the same. Um,
Okay.
if a person has the ability to create, that's their capability. If you allow them to post, then they will have both.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yeah.
And when I get into the demo, I can I can show you where we kind of have an audit trail built in, so somebody can be like, "Oh, I created that. I should probably not post it." So you can kind of see that when you're on the posting screen, like who did what. So we do have that audit trail. Any other questions?
Is that audit trail, Amy, is that exportable? So you could see like all of the postings for a certain period of time and who created them? Or is that just individual invoices?
That's a great question. Do you know, Paula?
I'm not sure. We would have to put that in our parking lot to investigate. I know that there's an audit log, so to speak, but I don't know to what extent or granularity you can report on that. So we would have to investigate that. I'm sorry, is somebody, was there something else? Hello?
No, no more questions.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Let's move on.
All right. So thanks. Those were some great questions. So now I'm going to move into some. So I kind of try to group some of the changes together by like accounts receivable and accounts payable. But now that everything's all in one system, I'm going to overlap a little bit. So again, I'm just going to kind of go through and point out some of the changes or some of the differences. But if there's something that you're curious about, just let me know. Okay, so let's start with a customer record. So there's not like a customer sellers tab anymore. So instead, in order to access the customer record, we're going to come to our configuration rules tab. And then on our receivables group, we have customer. And so I'm just going to go to our customer definition window. So this is where we can come in to either, and if you need to manually enter a new customer, you would do that here, or we can search for customer information. And again, like if I knew my customer ID, I could just type it in. But instead I'm going to use my select here or my binocular icon. And this brings up my AR customer search screen. So here I have the option, I can search by customer ID or customer name. Um, and um, you can also do like, hey, I know it exactly, so I'm going to say equal, or I think I know the name, I might be a little off, so I'm going to do like. And the percent sign is still the wild card, so that hasn't changed. So let's just look for somebody who has test in the name. And so that kind of narrows my search results. So I'm just going to use AR test customer. And then you can see that I believe this information is pretty much the same, where you can have your name, address on your settings tab. Um, we have them linked to their vendor record because this is what allows us to do that invoice refund, cash receipt refund, and do netting. So so our customer record is linked to our vendor record. And then let's see, on the posting tab, we have AR Gen, and then on the credit tab, this is where we can set up a terms rule for them. So this one is this credit term is set up for we're taking 50% of your payment. And you can also assign a finance charge rule to your customer or choose to exclude them. And then we don't use the location, the groups, or the contacts tab. So that's how we access a customer record, but for the most part, this screen should look the same. Um, while we're on the configuration rules tab, let's talk about um, configuring some accounts receivable invoice reason codes. So I'm going to, so my configuration rules tab and my receivables group, I'm going to click my little pop out. And I'm going to come down here to definition codes. And again, you can set up your security rights and roles to kind of determine who has access to do this. But so this brings up my code screen, and the AR reason codes are saved here in this reason codes folder. So I'm just going to click this. And so here you can see we have cash reason codes and invoice reason codes. So I'll click invoice reason codes. And so here's a list of reason codes that are configured in this training environment. So if there's one in here that you no longer want to use, you can just click it and click open and unclick code active. And if you decide you want to add a new one, just make sure you have the appropriate folder highlighted and click new. Make sure your parent ID is correct. So I want to enter an AR reason code. So my parent ID is invoice, and you can just assign it a code and a description and save it. And you now have a new AR reason code. So very, very easy process. And the same thing with your cash reason codes. You can scroll through. You have the option to inactivate a code you no longer want to use. And again, you click your folder, you click new, your parent ID is cash, so that way you know you're creating a cash reason code. And you just assign a code ID and a description. Right, so that's nice and straightforward. Um, Next, let's talk about the invoice refund process. So for this, I'm going to go to my data entry tab in my receivables group. And so here I have my refund drop down. So we can do a cash receipt refund or we can do an invoice refund. So for the cash receipt refund, I was playing in it earlier, you can see. Um, so here we have options to how to search for the cash receipt that we want to refund. So we can look it up by customer ID, by customer name, remittance ID, if you have the check number, remittance date, your deposit date, receipt created date. So you have lots of options over here. You can also narrow it down by payment type if it was a check versus a um, I don't know how often you get or a lockbox. Um, and again, on anything that's a date, if you click your down, you can choose to do a range. You can do greater than, lesser than, not equal to. So you have lots of options. So then you just click search, and it will pull up any refund cash receipts that meet your criteria. Um, and then you can view it's broken. So I search by a customer ID. So of course they all have the same customer ID, but if you're doing like a date range or something, you can see their customer ID and their name, the remittance ID and date, their remittance amount, any remaining amount, your payment reason, who created it, the date it was processed. And of course, if you have a large amount of results, let's do remittance date, let's say, you can always click on a column to sort it. And you could do the same thing, like if you had multiple customers or something and you want, or customer names and you want to look at things alphabetically. So this is all sortable. Um, so once you found the correct cash receipt to refund, you just select it. And then you have the option, of course, to view the receipt just to verify that, yes, this is the one that I want. And then you just click select and the marked for refund will change from no to yes. So that's kind of step one. First we select it and then we'll process it. So I'm
Amy,
going to
we
close.
have a question.
Oh, sure.
Natalie, when refunding a cash receipt, does it matter whether it was posted to an invoice already or not?
No, you can do it either way.
So just to follow up on that, so you could do it either way, so it doesn't have to be unapplied.
Correct. If it's been
It could be
yes.
applied. And so if it has been applied and you do the refund, does it like automatically kind of unapply it
Yes, it does.
and bring the invoice back up to what it was pre-application?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Is that new or was that available in the old application?
Oh,
Just curious because I'd never heard of that actually happening. But
I'm gonna punt to Paula because I haven't been in the old version of Flexi in a really long time.
And I haven't done cash application in a really long time, but it would make sense that it would unapply. Similar to when you void, let's say, a payment, it will release all those invoices and transactions that are part of the payment, and it will unapply the receivables. Yeah, the receivables that are on APNet, and sort of take everything back to the status it was before you voided it.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
All right, and so the other option under refund here is our invoice refund. Make the screen a little bit bigger. So again, we have lots of search options. We can search by customer ID, your name, your invoice ID, which is probably what you would use the most because you probably know exactly what you want to refund, right? But you can do it by amount or date. I'm just going to click search so we have an example here. And again, once you find the correct invoice, you do have the option to view the invoice so you can verify that it's correct. And then you would just click select and it would change marked for refund from no to yes. And then from here, we go to our review process tab. Oops.
Amy?
Yes.
Sorry. I wasn't sure exactly how to jump in here, if I just write in the chat or if I raise my hand or how I do that, but
You
I'm
can just
asking
jump
a lot of
in.
great. I'm asking a lot of questions about an area I don't know a lot about, so I hope Sean will help me out here as well if I'm asking anything that basically he already knows the answer to. But I was curious because there was a note on one of the previous slides back prior to the demo, which said something about receivables being limited to true receivables. And I'm not quite sure exactly what that meant. Right now, we do invoice refunds from our receivables module, so we can enter in kind of like negative receivables, I guess. And basically, when we refund those, they refund through AP and all of that. So, is that kind of what you're doing in that invoice refund process? Because you wouldn't be able to refund an invoice that is actually a receivable, right?
No, we can like, you mean an accounts receivable invoice? Yes. And Paula's going to talk a little bit about the um
Yeah, I can, if you're okay with me jumping in here, Amy.
yeah, go for it.
Sure. So when I mentioned limiting receivables to true receivables, what I'm talking about there, Natalie, is that upon point of implementation, we will cease submitting all of the reversal claims into receivables automatically. They will, reversal claims will flow into AP as credit memos. There's also an option available, should you choose to implement it, that is, they call it CBT for short, but it's credit, they call it credit balance transfer. And that's when a provider has essentially more credit memos or more receivable type transactions within AP, right? So that, I'm sorry, it's okay. I- anyway, essentially what that would do is then take that debit balance, if you will. I know we call it credit balance because when you're looking at the balance for the provider's payable, it looks like a credit, but it's actually the debit of the liability, right? Because you've got more credit memos than you do payables invoices. So in essence, the provider owes us, we don't owe them. And so there's functionality available should you, like I said, choose during implementation to opt in, whereas a package runs and it would reduce the um, debit balance on the payable side to a zero and would essentially set up a receivables for that provider. So in the instance where, let's say, a provider is no longer engaged in doing business with us, but they were in a situation where they had a flood of reversal claims at the end that um, was greater than any payables claims that they had submitted at the point where they ceased business. That would be a way to move that to an actual receivables for collections, if that makes sense.
That makes sense because
Yes, okay, yep. Yeah, I think I think I understand that now, that the true receivables comment there.
Right. It would be a receivable.
Basically, it was just stating that you don't believe reversals basically meet that criteria. So it's basically just taking those reversal claims, moving them to AP, and then going through this process here. Yeah, we haven't had full conversations about what that implementation might look like. But
Right.
yeah, we will definitely consider that here as well. So basically, the invoice refund process, just to kind of bring that back to kind of my original question, um, the invoice refund process basically is the same as it is now. Is that kind of the gist?
I don't know that it's necessarily
Is it different?
missing. It was a
No,
question.
not. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Not missing. The same is what I meant. So the invoice refund process in Flexi for this new version is the same as it was in the previous version.
I think it is. I think the main difference is that once you do it, you can, um, the accounts payable invoice was created automatically, kind of all within one module.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it was in the previous ones, obviously, they were two modules. But yeah, it was automatically created payable in the payables module, then they would go over into the module, into the other module, and complete the rest of the process there. Here it's all going to be done in one, which is great. So
Yeah,
thank you.
sure. So as you said, the process is similar to what you're doing now, but the rest of the process is come to your review process tab, go to refunds. So we have both the invoice refund process and the receipt refund process, and the screens pretty much look the same. And so you have your search options. You can search by your customer ID or your name or your refund amount. I'm going to click search. So I only have one here. Again, we have the option to view the refund, to pull it up, to make sure it's the correct one, and then click process. And once you click process, that accounts payable invoice is created. Um, and just to show you an example, I'm going to go to my inquiries tab. In my payables group, I'm going to search for a vendor. I just want to show you the AP invoice that's created, but it sounds like you're already familiar with this, but it gives you a chance to look at a couple more screens. So we'll go to vendor code. I'm going to choose equal because I remembered to write one down. Click search. Um, and so here we go. So here's my code, and you can see that I'm just going to click invoice inquiry. There we go. So here you can see that the invoice source here is my AR cash refund. And again, like one of the things that I love most about Flexi is you can just keep drilling down and pulling up more information. So I'm going to click View Invoice. And so here you can see the invoice description tells you it's a refund. And in this case, it was a cash receipt. So it's telling you the cash receipt number that it refunded and what the remittance was.
Also, while we're on this screen, Amy,
Mhm.
you might want to, if you can move your mouse over the lower left column, um, as she mentioned earlier, where you said where we were talking about the separation of duties and seeing who did what. You can see it was created by Flex Administrator, that's the administrator account. It was approved, verified by them when it was processed by, et cetera, et cetera. You would see that information there. So if you were looking at a specific item, you could see um, who basically key entered the data, who approved it, and then processed is essentially posting. So you could have three individuals involved, or you could have just two. Just wanted to point that out from our earlier conversation on security roles.
Great, thank you.
So, why wouldn't there be an approved date, but there's a process date?
Not sure, but you got to remember this is test data.
I
Okay.
think it's,
So
and I think
go
it's
ahead.
because it's still in a selected for payment. I don't think we've approved it. I wonder if it's for the payment cycle. Maybe that's why
Oh,
the
so
dates.
yeah, so
Yeah,
processed might not actually mean like that it's all the way through the process. It may just mean the last update or something.
yeah,
But that
because
was
this
that was
one's
made
not
on
all
it.
the way.
Got it.
Yeah, this one's not all the way through the process. And
Got it.
Paula's right. Like I have students in here, so some of my data is a little funky. uh, all right. So now let's talk about cash receipts because that's a place where there's a change. Let me close out my screens. I'm going to go to my data entry tab in my receivables group, and I'm going to enter a cash receipt batch. So you can see one of the changes. So I'm just going to kind of walk through the process just so I can show you all the screens. But for the most part, this is going to look similar. So as always, we want our auto batch code. You can enter a description. I'm just going to enter one cash receipt in my batch for $500. And as you guys know, we'll leave the deposit date as today's date. Anything yellow is required. So I'm going to choose my bank information um, and my payment method. But the difference here is this apply cash to invoices is automatically checked. In your current version, you have to remember to check it. So now it's auto checked. So when that's checked, I believe the cash rule we have configured for you is that it will pay the cash receipt will be applied to the oldest outstanding receivable invoice in the system for this particular customer. You do have the option, of course, of unchecking it and manually applying it to a specific AR invoice. Um, but I'm going to click save. And so I get my little message that it worked. And here's my cash receipt entry. So again, anything yellow is required. The first thing I need to do is enter my customer ID. If I know it, I could just type it in, but I of course don't. So I'm going to use my binocular icon and it brings up that same AR customer search screen again. I am just going to select my AR test customer, say okay. Then I'm going to enter my remittance ID. Oops, that's not going to work because that's not a number. There you go. My remittance amount. So I'm going to say $500 so it matches my batch amount. You can select your payment type. If it's a check, you can enter your micro number and ABA transit number. And then our cash reason code. And again, and I showed you guys how to configure these if you wanted to add something to the list, but I'm just going to select one. And that looks like everything's filled in. So I'm going to click save. I get a message that I was successful and my batch status and cash receipt status are completed. So that means I can post it. If you did decide that you wanted to apply it to a particular invoice, again, you can click cash receipt details and select the invoice you want to apply it to manually. So I'm going to close this. And then posting is a similar process where we go to our review process tab in our receivables group. I'm going to select receipts, make the screen a little bit bigger. So again, we have a lot of search options here. We can search by batch ID, which I didn't write down, but that's okay. By number of entries, your batch amount, your payment method. You can do it by deposit date. And again, so this is, looking for anything after February 16th, but you can do a range. You can do equal if you want a specific date, greater than, less than. You can also, like, I have my batch status limited to completed and verified, but you could, if you wanted to see look at anything that was posted or in process, you could do that too. I don't have a lot of data in here, so I'm just going to search. So here are some cash receipts that I have in the system. You can see I've been playing with it the last couple days. Um, So here's the one on the top that I entered today. So it's just a matter of, so if you have this set up, so the person who is reviewing and posting is not the person who entered it, you have the ability to come in here and view and edit the batch just to kind of verify that everything's correct. You can also view and edit the receipt. And you do have the option of, if something's incorrect and you need to make a change, you can do that and then just click save in your quick access toolbar. And once you've verified everything is correct, you can click verify. It changes the status to verified, and then your audit trail starts to fill out for you here. So you can see who verified it and the verified date. And you can also change the columns on some of these screens. You can right click, choose select columns. And then, like, I noticed that created by wasn't displaying, and we might want that just as a way to, same with processed by, to make sure that, hey, I entered this, I probably shouldn't be posting it, just so you can see that. And I've been logged in as the admin lately, so it just says, so it just says Flex Admin, but if I was logged in under my name, it would say Amy Noonan. All right. And then when you're done, you would just click process and it would be processed and it would be applied to the oldest accounts receivable invoice in the system because that's what we selected. Let's see. And then Paula, did you want to talk about um, the limitations on the volumes of ARs?
Yeah. So this is a really great feature now that we'd be moving to a new version of Flexi, and not only to a new version of Flexi, but of course a newer um, uh, OS, a new platform, all of it much more robust. No longer will there be limitations on the volume of accounts receivables that can be netted for a single provider or during a weekly cycle. As you know now, the adjustments unit, if they're doing some sort of mass adjustment, there's a retroactive eligibility change or a um, rates change or something else going on, either with an individual provider or with a group of providers. There are no more that no more than X number of receivables can we process for this provider. So there's 100,000 receivables that need to be processed. So we have to break it up and submit them over time, several weeks. The same thing with the weekly cycle. There's no longer a cap on the number of receivables that can be processed within any given weekly cycle. That's all eliminated in this upgrade. So, uh, to me, that's a really big win because we all know some of the challenges we've encountered over the years with those limitations. So, great news on that front for receivables. So, back to you, Amy, for
Thanks, Paula. Um, Before I move on, are there any questions about what we've covered so far? Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about accounts payable functionality, and I'll I'll bounce around a little bit still. So first thing, vendor records. So where we find those now are on our configuration rules tab in our payables group. And here we have vendor. Um, so I'm going to just click rapid because this shows me the most information at once. So this is where we can, if you needed to manually enter a vendor record, which hopefully doesn't happen too much since we create most of those automatically for you. Or if you wanted to look up a vendor, this is a nice place to do it. So again, I'm going to look up my vendor code with my binocular or select icon. And I'm going to make sure, because because I have students in this account, some of my data gets a little funky. So I'm just going to make sure that I open a vendor that has the buy location and the remit to location set up. So let's use demo hospital. And so here we go. We can see that you can view on this screen our address information, the contact information, um, how their payment method. So this vendor is set up to receive checks, their status, if they're active or inactive. We can move to invoice defaults here and see that we have duplicate checking turned on, which is important. For routing information, this vendor is actually set up for a check. If I had opened one that was set up for EFT, you could see their banking information here. Any additional information, their government reporting information. So this is where we should see their tax ID or their social security number. Um, and then this particular, I like to use this. I like to use this vendor a lot. So apparently they have 3 withholding certificates set up on them, which hopefully is not a common occurrence, but that's okay. Looks like we did liens and 1099s. And then we have they're saying your by location statistics, which is giving you information on year to date, last year, and life to date on invoices and balances. And then on your remit to statistics, you can see again year to date, last year, and life to date on number of payments and total payment amounts and amount of the largest payment. So that's where we can so this should look pretty familiar, but just where we can access your vendor information now. And now I want to talk about, I had pulled it up once, but I want to talk a little more in depth about our payable invoice inquiry screen. You might have noticed that that looks different. So I'm going to go back to my inquiries tab in my payables group, and I'm going to choose invoice. So here we have a lot of search options. So we can look by vendor code, vendor name. We can search by an invoice batch number or an invoice number. You can do invoice amount. And again, you can do a range or greater than or less than. The payment number, you can do by invoice date, and you can also look by status. So I'm going to do all, click search. So then, oops, I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see all of our buttons here. So again, um, all of these columns we can sort by clicking on them. So if you wanted to, again, sort by date, that's pretty straight. That's easy. That's pretty straightforward. We can do that. And then down here where we have our options where we can drill down into more information. So we can click, if I click view invoice, this screen I think will look a little bit different to you. So first on our invoice entry tab, here we can view the information about the invoice that was entered. So our vendor information, our invoice number, the invoice type, the payment method, the invoice total amount, and then again, who created it. Um, so next we have our distribution detail. So this displays the posting accounts and the distribution. Then we have our liability detail. This displays the original charge and withheld and netting amounts if applicable. So here you can see we had an AR netting, we have payment. Looks like I voided this at one point. Um, you have your GL information tab. So this displays the journal entries that were created during the invoice process. Additional information I don't believe is currently used. Then we have our payment information. This displays the payment detail. And then we have invoice lines, which is not currently used. I'm going to close this. If we click view transaction, it pulls up the same screen. It just automatically opens you up, opens the screen up to the liability detail tab. And then our last button here is view payment. So what opens is going to depend on the status of the payment. So if the invoice status is selected for payment, which would be this one here is, make sure so this one here is selected for payment. So if I click view payment for this one, it opens up the payment review scheduled payment screen. So these would be, so this is the screen that pulls up if an invoice has been selected during like advanced selection for payment, but hasn't been processed yet. So here we can see our vendor information, we can see their payment method, um, and then we can see the total scheduled payment and then any deduction. So if here we've deducted money for withholding certificate, money's been deducted for AR netting, and then we can see the net payment amount. So first, our first tab here, we have our invoices that were selected for payment. So we have our list of invoices. We have our 1099 withholding certificate deduction tab. So this shows me that it looks like we have two withholding certificates for this for demo hospital, and you can see the amount that will be withheld when the payment's processed. And then our last tab here is our AR netting deductions. So you can see a list of ARs that netted against this payment And one nice new feature here is if I click an AR, I click view, it opens up that accounts receivable information. So you can see your invoice ID. And then if we go to our settings tab here, you can see your invoice reason code. You can see the terms rule. So this one's set up for a payment plan. You can see what the recoupment start date was and if there's finance charges and if netting was turned on. So I really like that you can drill down into the AR now from a payment. If if we select one that's in a paid status or approved status and click view payment, then the payment summary inquiry screen opens. So this displays the payment information and all of the invoices that were included in the payment. So I really like I really like that we can kind of drill down and keep seeing more information. Let's see. We were going to talk about, I think, Paula, you already covered the reversal claims as the credit memo. So I think we're good there.
Yeah, the other thing we were going to demo was the distribution rules.
Mhm. That's
Um,
next.
okay. Do you want me to talk about the deferred processing at this point? I think that I've seen it a few times in some of the screens, so people might be just wondering what that means. So,
Go for it.
yeah. So, one of the neat features of this version of Flexi is there are configurable deferred processing queues that you can establish. Um, what that does is you're able to process, and when we say process, it could be a, you know, like advanced selection for payment process, or it could be an actual posting of an invoice or a cash receipt process. Any type of process in the system, it's configurable to be what's known as a deferred processing queue. You can execute them ad hoc, or you can schedule them for a specific date and time. What that does essentially is it offloads that process from your local client to uh, the server. So no longer do you sit there, click the button, and then wait, and eventually you get a message that says, okay, this is done. You don't have to do that anymore. It won't tie up your laptop or desktop, whatever you're working on. Um, it also offloads the process to essentially, a 64-bit server versus trying to process it locally on, probably your 32-bit client. Um, One of the neat things about that, and I know that this has been a bit of a challenge of late, is it should eliminate the PCN splits we've been seeing quite a few of in recent months, um, because of the fact that it's able to go to a much more robust processing server as opposed to trying to do it through your client. So one of the things that results in those PCN splits is that it gets to the almost the point where it's going to time out when it's processing. So in order to save the work, it splits the PCN. And um, we all know that that just results in some additional handling and work for all sides involved in that part of the process. So it's a pretty neat feature. They do use it a lot, well, almost exclusively in our current Ohio implementation, and it just it everyone loves it. You just point, click, and go. And then you can go on to doing your other work. So it helps with overall productivity. So I'm excited about that one. I hope you are too. So, um, distribution rules. Back
Yes,
to Amy.
thank you. Um, uh, okay, so distribution rules. I don't.
I'm sorry, can
Go
we
ahead.
stop
Mm,
for a minute? Is there any questions here? Okay, go ahead, Amy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now let's talk about distribution rules. So first, I'm going to show you where we configure them, and then I'll kind of show you what they look like in action. So I'm going to go to my configuration rules tab in my payables group and click distribution rules. So what we use the distribution rules for is, you guys know, like when you're entering an AR invoice or, manually entering an accounts payable invoice, you need to go in and pick the correct account strings and make sure that the percentage of distribution is correct. And what we can do is create these shortcut codes for you now. So that way you just pick the correct distribution code, and on like when we're entering the AP invoice, it's going to automatically enter the correct account strings with the correct split. So I'm going to show you what that looks like configured already in the system. So let's search for a distribution code. I'll use my select icon. And so this is what we have set up in this environment. And we can set up the distribution code for something that makes sense for you guys. But here you can see different ones that we set up, and we of course have a distribution description to help us. Um, and then we kind of put the percent split afterwards. So for this one, it has like 0, 100, so it's $0 is going, or 0% is going to the state account string, but 100% to federal. Some of these are set up for a 50-50 split. And of course, we would use whatever split is appropriate for Maine. But I'm just going to select this distribution code. And when I say OK, these are the two account strings that it's pointing to with our distribution split. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like in action. So let's enter an accounts payable invoice. So I'll go to my data entry tab in my payables group. We'll enter an invoice. So this is our batch screen. So let's just do one and click save. So my invoice entry screen pops up. So of course, the first thing we have to do is say who's the vendor. So I'll use my search feature. So this brings up my vendor selection screen. So as always, I can search by vendor code or vendor name. I'm just going to use demo hospital, but as you can see, the percent sign is still our wildcard. So next we have to enter our invoice number. The invoice date, of course, still defaults to today's date. The invoice type. And this is another great example of where we can kind of use our hyperlinks, because I might be looking at this and be like, I'm not sure what all these little acronyms stand for. If we click the invoice type hyperlink, it brings up the invoice type codes and the invoice descriptions. We'll just make this a manual invoice. And let's see, my payment method is here. So I'm just going to click save and my quick access toolbar. And so it pops up this AP distribution entry screen that you're used to. So this is where I could hit select. I bring up my posting account search screen, look for the correct account number. I could search by part of the account number. I could do and pull up the search for account strings that have, for by my account description, I could just click search and bring up the whole list. And then I would go through and I would pick the correct one and I would fill in. And then if it's, multiple lines, pick the next one, make sure I have the amounts entered correctly. So that's one option. That's, I think, your current process, or I can click cancel. I can go to additional entries and then I can pick my distribution rule from the list. And let's pick one with a 50-50 split and say, okay, here. And so now and then I can go to my distribution. Oh, you know why? I'm like, why isn't that working? Because I forgot to put the invoice amount in. I was like, why is my batch status still in process? I can fix that. Um, so let's fix that now. That makes the example look a little bit better, right? Um, I think I have to save it again. All right, oops. There we go. So now because I chose my distribution code, it pulled in the two appropriate account strings and it split the amount of the AP invoice by the percentages I entered in my distribution code. So that's a nice, it's kind of, I like that it's a nice time saver and it's also just a way to, you can kind of use it as a control method, to increase accuracy too. So I'll say, okay. So here, now that I've remembered to enter my invoice amount, my batch status is completed and my invoice status is balanced. So I can close my screen. And it's the same thing. So for an AR invoice, we haven't seen that screen yet. So let's do that. For my receivables, where we can do my AR batch, 500. Let's select our customer. We'll do AR test customer. Let's see. I'll go to our settings tab. So again, we can enter our invoice reason code that we looked at configuring earlier. We can select our term type, whether it's a regular or a payment plan. Um, we can always use our terms rule hyperlink if we want to verify, that we're selecting the correct terms rule. Verify that our netting status is correct. We have it set to active, and then the finance charges. And then I'll click save. And then once I do that, my details button becomes available. And then again, from here, I could choose select account and kind of go through that process of selecting the correct account string or account strings. Or I can just choose my distribution rule from right here. And then it auto populates the correct account strings and it splits out the total. So 250, 250, because this one's set up for 50-50, but you can set it up like 40-60 or whatever the correct breakdown is for Maine. And now my batch status is verified and my invoice status is completed. And as always, I would go in and post them. Are there any questions over what Paula and I have covered?
I do have a number of questions.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm just kind of going over kind of what I had sent previously. I did notice that kind of it looked like none of my questions I had sent previously were included in the original screen. So I'm not sure if you only got Darren's response. But I had responded um, to the um, yeah to the inquiry around kind of what we would like. So I have a few questions. One of them is around kind of what the options for netting status are in the upgraded version of the system, and around kind of how receivables will net. I think this is kind of more towards, it's answered a little bit in that in the new system, it's AP instead of AR, but it could pertain to other receivables that we may generate manually. So right now, if we do have multiple account strings within a receivable, the system, when it nets against those lines, it nets against them sequentially. Is there any option in the new upgraded system to be able to kind of change how that nets to net proportionately?
Across the distribution accounts?
Yes.
I'm not really sure, Natalie, but we would like to take that and investigate it further, because I recall this question from many years ago. And yeah, let's take a look at it, and we'll get back to you on that one if that's okay.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So another question would be turning on or off netting. Is there the ability in the new system to do that in aggregate for a group of receivables? Or is that something that has to be done through the UI one at a time?
Again, I'm not sure if we can do it by group. Can we research and get back to you on that one?
Yes.
Okay, so turning AP netting on or off on a group basis.
Yes. And then we would be interested in kind of learning a little bit more if there are additional terms that may be available in the new upgraded application that may not have been available previously. Kind of what all the different options that our recovery group has for recouping dollars. We understand, there's an offset ability where you can offset a certain percentage of their payables. We can do a specific dollar amount. I think right now, and Sean may have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a certain kind of dollar figure I believe we can offset by dollar amount, but it has to be, it would offset every time you run a cycle, that dollar figure. But curious if you could set, a timing to say only do it once a month or only do it on this day of the month or stuff like that. So, just curious if there are kind of additional options for terms.
So in other words, every 2 weeks instead of every
Right.
week, or every time you run
Yeah.
a cycle. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Just curious about that.
Set schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there
Well,
the ability to schedule them, basically? Yeah.
Right. And right. Okay. Again, we'll investigate that. We're not aware that that was going to pop up. So apologize that we're not better prepared on that. Were there any others, Natalie, that you had?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had, okay. So is there a really long list, or do you just have like one more?
Well, no, there's a few more. These are just the ones I kind of have around receivables.
Okay.
And I have a few around payables.
Okay.
Would you guys like to continue the demo, or is the demo pretty well set and it's just question time?
Well, it's close to question time.
Okay.
I'd like to just close out with the fund
Um,
allocation rules engine.
Paula,
And-
can you, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, Natalie, did you submit those questions to Rick and Roger?
I did.
Oh, okay. I'll follow up with them to make sure that we have received those questions, because we are preparing some answers that we are going to send back in writing. I just want to make sure that we are receiving all these questions on a timely basis. If you don't mind, can you send those questions to me and CC Rick and Roger? I would really appreciate it. to make sure that we are responding on a timely basis to you?
Sure, sure. Yeah. They're not necessarily written in question, but they were written as kind of what changes or updates. The question was, what changes or updates could make your work easier? And so we had a list of those items, and that's kind of what I was going through there.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, if we could just
But we can
get
move on
through.
though, and
Yeah, I was
yeah,
going to say, if we can get through the fund allocation rules engine,
sure.
and let's take a look at View 360, and we will have hopefully some additional Q&A time if there's any of those questions that you want to raise at that time.
Sure.
And of course, if you get them to us in writing, we will definitely research all of those data points and give you a prompt response. So thank you so much, Natalie, for
Sure.
that. Okay, so if we can move back to the slide deck, wanted to just show you a few screenshots of the neat tool that we've implemented for fund allocation. As you know, Maine was really foundation site for fund allocation, and it is currently some gap tables known as the matrices, and there are search patterns, etc., that drive that whole process. The neat thing is that we were able to leverage a COTS product um, for which is essentially a rules engine, and we have configured it to support fund allocation. So makes life a lot simpler. Also, I believe that it has some reporting capability in that we can print out what has been configured so that you can look at it, you know, as opposed to having to go into um, gap tables and whatnot through SQL. So moving right along, this screenshot, and there are more, I believe, components of this, but in general, just wanted to give you some exposure. So this is called the rule flow, and you can see it's graphical. You can see the different components, and essentially, this is similar to what you know today as search patterns. This is saying, okay, go to one, and then if not, go to two, go to three, that sort of thing. Can we go to the next slide, Maria? And here, this will look very familiar to you. It looks just a lot like what we know as the matrix. And again, this is totally configurable, but it's a nice way to be able to see it via UI that is editable and configurable, as opposed to looking at it, okay, now we got to print it out, now we got to go to a spreadsheet, now we got to know that, this, that, and the other. It gives us that capability of essentially making some changes and updates in a more real-time manner. If we can go to the next one. Now, this right here, from the last screen, you saw on the left margin, the names of each row, and those are the various attributes, right? And here is where you define those attributes. So for example, the one where we've got highlighted here is called age max, which, we can infer that means the maximum age of a member. And you can see it's a data type of integer, not currently mandatory, and then it's in base mode. But all of these fields are configurable and support the overall fund allocation rules. And it certainly came in very, very handy when they implemented this in Ohio. And I know that it's going to make life a lot easier, both for your side, Natalie, as well as for Gainwell, especially as we communicate changes and and try to get them configured and make sure that we're getting them configured accurately. And of course, getting those changes implemented more efficiently so that we can move to testing more rapidly than we have in the past. So that's the new fund allocation rules engine. And next up, I'm going to hand this over to Cindy, who's been waiting very patiently. And she's going to take us through this View 360 you've heard so much about that I really believe you're going to get really excited about. Take it on, Cindy.
Thank you, Paula. Before I go on, is there any questions before we transfer from Paula? And I'm gonna grab the screen then. Okay, again, my name is Cindy Audette, and I'm going to be showing you how you can see some of the outputs of what Amy was showing you today from Flexi directly in View 360. Hopefully eliminating some of the need for some of the users to access Flexi or even have to go into Flexi. So we're going to look at View 360 and the financial transaction details, and in some cases even process the information here in View. Calling your attention first, though, to the Notification Center. Again, as I mentioned in our overview in our opening session a few weeks back, within the Notification Center, you can subscribe to certain event processing that's happening in the system through managed subscriptions. This is an option here, so you can check the boxes you want to subscribe to. When those events are kicked off and initiated, you'd be able to see them populate in your notification center. So right here, I can see that I initiated paying a fee for service claims. So I have an indicator here in my window that I can open, and it basically is showing me that process log browser. If there were any errors, I can go ahead and open up this particular window. I make it a little bigger. And I can see information why it may have failed or why it might have processed. Here we're starting the check, we're updating the check, and this one here is telling me that this particular claim cannot be processed through payment because it's on hold. So this is the information you normally would see in your process log browsers if you were paying attention to those or are part of looking at that information. But again, you can see it directly here in View 360. All right, so we're going to move on though to our financial tile. We did spend a brief moment on this in our overview, so I'm going to take it a little bit slower today. So here in our financial tile on our main screen, I have information here to search. So this is just our basic search engine, searching for your vendor. I can provider ID, member ID, vendor ID, or customer ID, depending on your search capabilities and what has been set up in Flexi. Again, this information is pulling from Flexi itself, what Amy was just showing you. This is my demonstration environment, so not all of the data that she showed you matches up quite exactly. But you'll be able to see the options here once you create your vendor groups and your vendor types. You'd be able to sort and filter and pull that information back, as well as create dates. Any additional filters are here regarding any approval statuses. And then you have your recently accessed list at the bottom of the screen. So any of the recently accessed information that you might have pulled up is quick and accessible here in View. So that's just the main search screen. We're going to take a look at accounts payable. Again, accounts payable will provide a searchable filter items here for you, so we can select payable types, look for any for cost settlement. Once we hit any of the submit options for any of the items that are in here, we can export this list out to Excel for review. We have other options here for payable statuses and payment amounts, including void or including on-hold invoices. I want to go ahead and take a look at any of these. So we have a few just to peek at today. This first payable ID with the R in it is the reversal payment. So by using my pop-out window, I can take a look at this. If I wanted to side by side, I could, but let's just expand this. So this is pulling in the invoice detail. You can see the invoice ID at the top, who the record's for, and the NPI. It's pulling some provider information as well, taking a look at that if there was anything. And in this case, this particular provider has a payment in process.
Hey, Cindy,
Yes,
we have a request to just slow down a little bit. If you could, please.
sure.
Thank you.
All right, so we're looking at our invoice details. On the left-hand side, we have our invoice ID, the invoice date, and the type of the invoice, and the status and the invoice amount. I have a direct link here to the claim itself. If I wanted to, in View 360, pop over directly to the claim, I can do that by selecting this pop-out window, which will link me directly over to the claim that has been reversed. I'm going to close out of this claim window. On the right-hand side of this invoice, I can see the description, the bank account information, and the general ledger effective dates, as well as the batch number the payment was in. And in the center of the screen, I can see the account distribution for this reversal and any account code or account description information. If there were any documents or receipts, we could add them here and would be able to open them through View. Let's go ahead and take a look at another one. So I'm still back in my accounts payable. I'm in the payables option at the top of the screen, and I'm just searching, looking through the list here at the bottom. I'm going to select the adjustment invoice in this case, so I can show you that what we can see here below. Again, it's for the same provider, same record at the top of the screen. Invoice details are just filled out differently based on the claim information. Since this is an adjustment, I'm able to see any of the account codes or distributions. So the first few line items were from the reversal that we had just seen. So the reversal negated the information here. This is the updated information from the payment. So in any account strings from the original reversal that's reprocessed, you'd be able to see additional accounting strings, as many as it takes to process the claim. So it's just a different view of it than you're used to from the Flexi screens. I see a hand pop up.
Yes, Charles has a question.
Yeah, hi. Just a real
Sure.
quick one
Sure.
here. On some of the screens I've seen, payment not cleared, payment cleared. What does that mean?
So that's a configurable status within Flexi. So I don't know what you have in your environment for invoice statuses that are been configured, but it's either paid or not cleared through the bank itself. In my case, it's a demonstration environment. So even though we might have paid it, it may not have been cleared by the bank because this was a bank processing. So
Right. I
that's
mean, generally, we're not capturing that information right now, correct?
I would have to defer that to Paula. Or, I mean, if you're not capturing it today, then it's probably not
Right.
configured that way. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Thanks.
sure.
Cindy, just to jump in here,
Yeah,
that invoice status, that is a Flexi invoice status, correct?
that is correct. All the information that you're seeing
So
here
those,
yeah,
so those are configured, Chuck. Those statuses, they do change as we process an invoice through a cycle. So that payment, that paid payment not cleared is likely what you would see once the claim actually processes through a cycle. There's also selected for payment when it's being
Right.
processed through a cycle. There's approved but not posted. There's information like that that can tell you if it actually has been processed through a cycle or not.
Right. But we still
Yeah.
don't get feedback from the bank, when the actual payment has cleared the bank, right?
That's right. So
Yeah.
paid payment not cleared is the last status you would see
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Flexi. Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
Sure. Just one other question, Cindy, just real quick while we're on this. The View 360, is that real time?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So what you'll see is Flex when you're in View 360, as I am right now, it's pulling from Flexi itself, it's real-time data. So if it gets changed in Flexi, of course it moves through the sync process and the validation processes. But once it is updated in Flexi, it'll be reflective here. And so you'll see your payment cycles and the processing as it goes through from the statuses as well. Close out of this particular invoice. Let's just open up one more while I'm in here. Again, just showing you the invoice information, the statuses, the batch number that this payment was part of, the direct link to the claim ID in the center of the screen, and then any of the account distributions. Calling your attention to the center of the screen, we have an ability for users with appropriate permissions to add a payment directly through View 360. So I'm going to select this option. The fields that you can enter through View 360 can be seen on this screen, again, pulling the information and populating the information from Flexi, as well as back into Flexi for the actual processing of this payment. So you'd enter in your payee ID, name, location, create date and effective dates, payment amounts, and then on the right-hand side, select payment status, individual payments, if you're going to hold it, or auto AR creation. And then, as Amy was mentioning regarding the distribution rules, once those are configured in the system, you'd be able to select your distribution rule here and then process the payment. From our accounts payable tab, we're going to move over to the next option, which is payments themselves. Again, we have our filterable search criteria here for payee ID, payment ID, all payments in the last 30, 60, 90. We can do it by payment status that we just kind of talked about, payment categories or payment methods, and even search for check numbers. Down at the bottom of the screen is the accounts payable payments list, which can be exported out to Excel. We have a little bit more detail here on the screen level where we can open or close these particular carets. We see the payment ID information, the amount, create date, category, the method, and the status. And then below that, we have our payable ID and the payable date, the description, payment status, and the payment amount. And again, a direct link over to the claim. So anytime you see these hyperlinks and pop-up boxes, you can open those directly up. From this screen, I'm going to open up this particular payment ID, opening up the window. Here's the information you can see for the payment. You can see our header detailed information, total payment amount, any AR that's been netted. On the right-hand side, we can see our payment date, our payment ID, the status, and the net payment amount. If there is an EDI 835 transaction assigned or attached, you'd be able to see the file ID information here. Got the accounts payable invoice information and any receivables that have been netted against it here. And again, back to what we were just looking at before, though, is our invoice that I can open up again and come back to that same invoice we were looking at earlier. Any questions on accounts payable before I move over to receivables? Let's take a look at receivables then. Again, with most of our screens, we have the search and filter capability. We have our receivable statuses, our AR reason codes. Again, these drop downs are configurable in Flexi based on what you guys use. Accounts receivable list here at the bottom, again, can be exported, and we do have a feature here to add a new receivable entry as well. Same type of process as with the payables. Selecting your reason code, selecting payment plans, whatever's configurable in configured in Flexi and available will be there to show, as well as your distribution rules. And from here, you can go ahead and process your new receivable. Taking a look at some of the lists below, we have some of our information we can see regarding items even with a payment plan. So let me go ahead and select this particular receivable. So the information that you'll see in View 360 regarding the receivables at the very top here, you'll have your invoice ID and the customer record, customer ID, your invoice ID, the date and status on the left-hand side, invoice amount, open amount, and if there is a payment plan, if there's any invoice reason code assigned, if we're offsetting this on a 1099, what the term rules are, the number of periods, and if there's any finance charge to be applied, and when you're going to start the interest. Again, at the center of the screen, you can see the account distribution information for this invoice ID. Question?
Yeah, Natalie?
Is the description available on the screen for either receivables or for payables?
The description for
The description that's entered in Flexi. When we enter a receivable or when we enter a payable, we're able to enter it's either an invoice description or a
I see.
batch description. I'm just curious if that's
It does
an
not appear to
option.
be available to be pulled from if the data would still be in Flexi, right, for
Yes.
viewing those. But right now it's not available or opened to see through Flexi through View 360 at this time. So
Okay.
it is something though to consider as we move forward during implementation. If there are fields that you do use in Flexi, and it would make it that much easier to have access through View 360 to see it. Those are the things we'd like to hear about for future enhancements and releases. So as we get our new releases, as people provide input, if it's something that we think is, I guess, going to be part of what we want to offer, it'll come out in a new release. But it'll be open for discussion definitely during that time, Natalie. So as you go through here, keep that in mind, right? All these things that would be great to have in here. We're looking for feedback as well.
Very good.
So we do have other items For instance, our demo hospital selected for netting. Receivables, can open this particular one up. Where we can see the invoice ID, again, information that the invoice status has been selected for netting. There isn't a payment plan on this particular one, but it will be offset in the 1099. And see the account distribution information. In this case, there's just one. However, we do have the ability to attach or see any supporting documentation that might be applicable to this particular receivable. So if you have any invoices or RAs and things like that can be attached and assigned. Okay. Moving on to cash receipts. The fields that are filterable in View 360, we can search for payer ID, cash ID, the batch ID, and even a cash reason. Transactions in the last 30, 60, 90, and the transactional date ranges. Cash receipt amounts from and through, so if we wanted to do a search for that. Excluding or including cash remaining to be applied, that's greater than 0. Allocation account distributions, and allocation transaction types. So if we wanted to look for just cash applications, we could submit and see this information here. Again, exporting the list and the ability to add the new cash receipt entry screens. Let's go ahead though and take a look at one of our cash receipts. So from the cash receipts screen, we see the ID number and the customer record. Cash batch ID and the receipt amount and how much is still remaining to be applied can be seen. And then the cash reason code. And here's some of the reason descriptions that are configurable. The AR cash applied and unapplied, you can see the transactional below. So it was applied and then unapplied. And we can link directly over to the AR invoice as well. Get out of the cash receipts. Any questions on accounts receivable?
I have one.
Sure.
Okay. In a lot of the examples that we've seen here, or I guess all of them, there's only like been one account distribution line. Now, I know with a lot of our transactions, we have two, say, per claim line, state and federal. So how is that going to show in here when we're looking at a transaction?
So let me go back to one of the screens. So they do have in the system, we do have the ability to show more than one. So let me open this one, for example. We have the account distribution code here. So it's
Okay,
not
right. But
Mhm.
you got two separate claim lines. So, for
Yeah,
example, for claim line 1, we will likely have two different account codes for claim line 1. Same
correct.
for claim line 2. So, how are we going to see those?
So in this particular case, this claim line field here is empty because there's only one claim line on this particular claim.
Oh, okay.
So
All
what
right.
you'd see here is claim
Got it.
line one, and then you'd see another line for claim line two, claim line two. This list would get longer.
Okay.
It makes sense?
Understood. Yes,
Yeah.
does. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anything else?
Will the claim lines show?
right here in this field?
Yes.
Yes.
It
Yes,
will.
it'll say
Okay.
there's only one line, so it's not referenced, but it will show claim line one, and then it will have two, three, so
Okay.
whatever.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Nothing else in the chat, Cindy.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to close out of here. We are going to go over to a new feature that you'll get and probably and hopefully spend a lot of time in View 360 called financial management. I'm going to select on this, and please keep in mind this is demonstration, so it would have to be obviously entered in and filled in via your specific fund codes and fund descriptions. So this is our new fund code screens that allows us to manage and budget the information. It does get updated as the payment cycles are finalized, approved, and completed. So what you're seeing here, and just let me just open this first line here for this particular fund code. Here are all the account codes that make up that fund code. Moving here at the center of the screen, though, first I can see the account descriptions, any year-to-date expenditures for those account codes, any outstanding payments, any outstanding uncollected receivables, if there's any unapplied cash, or any outstanding netting. This last payment date is reflective of the fiscal year. So coming back up, if I want to roll those numbers up, what we can do is set what's called a warning threshold percentages and a threshold amounts. So based on your fiscal year budget, we can configure that information for the details. We can see our year-to-date expenditures at the very rolled up level, that fiscal year to date balance, any percent that's been expended, outstanding payments, uncollected receivables, and outstanding netting, and if we're in a budgeted forecasted amount. So what you're going to see here on the top of the screen, as well as you would be alerted in your alert center, is if you were or any of your account strings or fund codes were going to be year to date in a warning status, so what level you wanted to be warned at. You would get notification, as well as if you were over budget. Keeping in mind that there are those checks and balances that happen on a weekly basis, and you would be well aware beforehand that you would be going over budget. But this is just one visual way of taking a look at all of your fund codes and the account information and putting it into some kind of a budgeting perspective. Let me go ahead and open up one of these again so you can see the information. Again, the population of this data would come through those financial cycles and anything through Flexi. The next two fields over here are just the pretty basic. They're just the setup of the budget. So for each one of your fund descriptions, this is where the configuration happens in this edit mode by adding in the different budget amounts and what percent of that budget you want to be notified or warned at, and therefore what that amount would be. Again, you can export the list anytime you see this export option. And very lastly, here is just the fiscal year settings so that we can tell the system what your fiscal years are. Coming back to expenditures by fund code. Any questions on this or what you're seeing? It is an option. It is new in View 360. It is not something that you have to use or turn on. It is just a new available functionality for you. If there are no more questions regarding the View 360 part, that does conclude my little tour. So I'll just stop here for a minute if Chuck or Natalie, you have anything else you'd like to ask.
Cindy, I do have a question on the budgeting piece.
Sure.
Just say for grins and giggles, we set up our budgets in there for the year, and we're getting close to the end of it. And there's a possibility that we'd go over in an account.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Is it just a notification, or is there some action that can be done too?
It's just a notification. It's a
Just a
notification to,
notification.
yeah, for
Okay.
the end user to be aware, and then follow whatever policies and procedures you have in place to either
Okay.
allow it to go over budget, however you manage your weekly cycle. It's more
Okay.
of a, it's just more informational and alerting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
good question. At this point, I'm stopped sharing my screen and I will turn it back over to Paula and Amy.
Thank you, Cindy. I really do like that budget piece, because I think that it's going to provide you real-time information, so you know going into that next cycle that you could be going over budget or that you're nearing budget. So obviously something we don't currently have. So really like that one. Thank you, Cindy. So based on the questions that we did have earlier, I think you'll agree that we did review the invoice refund processing steps within AR. Obviously, because it's a single module approach, you're not having to get out of AR and go to AP or vice versa. You are within the system. Ability to create AR invoice reason codes is needed. I think you all will agree that Amy did a great job demonstrating that. Very simple process and very simple in terms of activating or inactivating any of those. Exports, queries, reports. I think that we saw a lot of that throughout both Flexi as well as in View 360. So obviously lots of data that you could have available at your fingertips. And in terms of establishing or manipulating the reports yourselves, that's something obviously we discuss further during implementation. Please note that any functionality you have today will not go away. So reports you have today will still exist. They're not going away, etc. In terms of creating a cycle PCN for AR invoice refunds, again, that's something we can talk about during implementation for any additional reporting needs you might have. Any questions or concerns about this one? Okay,
Paula, yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts on, so we have we have several reports that are created for us in Flexi, and we run them through the control module right
Correct.
now. There are several also that we run through the Flexi Analyzer tool. Um, i- do you think there's going to be any improvement in the performance of getting those reports to run? Several of them are relatively large, depending on kind of how we run them. And they can run for quite a while in order to get us data. I'm curious if you have any idea if the new upgrades might actually improve that performance.
I can't say with 100%
Yeah,
certainty. However,
let
I
me,
believe that would to be true. Go ahead.
yeah, let me have that, Paula. Natalie, I did follow up on this question based on the recent issue that we had last week. And based on the feedback that I received, comparing to the recent implementations in West Virginia and Ohio, And I did receive confirmation that we will have more efficiency in job run for those jobs. So yes, the answer to your question, yes, we will have a better job efficiency comparing to what we have right now.
That's great.
Agreed.
That's great. Yeah, and of course, you know, if this is implemented, and we go that way, you know, we'll definitely have more conversations about the ability to pull data and whether or not, you know, it will actually meet our needs. There are several different kinds of reports that are run and uh, things like that. So it will be interesting to discover what we have direct access to pull, and then what we kind of had to have the report generate. And then just one more thing on this page. You guys did go over the ability to add and create AR invoice reason codes as well as AP invoice types or invoice reason codes. And I just kind of wanted to bring up for everybody's awareness, there has always been an issue with the state performing that action because it has a direct impact on the RA or 835 process. So it will be interesting to continue that conversation. Again, if this is implemented, you know, to kind of talk about ways we could actually make that process easier, and determine what would actually be required on an RA or 835, you know, from that standpoint. So just wanted to throw that out there. It's not exactly as easy as just, oh, you can now create AR invoice types. We would have to make sure that that they didn't have a negative or adverse impact on the RA or 835 process.
Correct. And of course, all areas of the system are being upgraded in one manner or another. And when I had a conversation with that concerning that with Tom, he indicated that it was his belief that that would not be an issue, but let's follow up and make sure that the EDI folks are good with that. But it was my understanding that you having that direct capability would not be problematic. But I will follow up to make double, triple sure.
That would be great.
Okay. Next slide is, I believe, a final Q&A for any questions at all you might have about any of the material that we displayed or discussed this morning.
Natalie, I'm sorry again for not getting your questions and comments in a timely manner prior to this demo. But definitely we are going to respond to the email to your questions and comments in writing. And if there is a need to have a separate session to show you or demonstrate some of the items, we can do that as well.
Okay. Yep. That would be great. Mohammed, I'm definitely very interested in seeing some of these items demoed. And, you know, kind of hearing a little bit more about some of the other items that I had under the accounts payable listing. I certainly don't have to go through them here. If you guys have any questions, though, please feel free to reach out on those. If you guys need any clarification on any of the points that I had made, it's really just a list. So if you have, you know, if you need any clarification around kind of what I meant by the list, you can let me know. One of the things, you know, that we're very interested in, obviously, is efficiency. We are looking, you know, for, you know, some of the manual items, you know, that we do through the UI now. if there's ways to automate those items or, make the process a little bit quicker. I'm very, very interested in the upload capability. We do currently have that capability within Flexi AP. And we've had that for a while now. There have been a few enhancements to that we have requested over the years. And it has all been kind of linked to whether or not we could get a Flexi upgrade. And whether or not, those upgrades might have some additional capabilities. So we're definitely very interested in kind of hearing more about the upload ability within both the AP as well as the AR module or the AR areas of the new module.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anyone else have any questions before we close today? We certainly do have some additional time. If you have anything that you'd like to have answered today. Okay.
Also, the link and the slides will be available soon out on the Teams, so you'll get notification of that. And then Rick, Roger, anything that you wanted to add before we close?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And it sounds like we'll be talking again soon. So really appreciate all the good questions and interaction. And thank you and have a great day.